veterans organisation in East London with such a good turnout. I tried to get a 6-1 thing, get together working, and we're lucky if we've got 3 people. Anyway, to start with, I'd like to give you some history to my involvement with Legacy Conversations. I'm a 6-1 MEF veteran from 1980 and a veteran of Operation Skeptic. During the attack on the Smoke Shell base on 10th of June 1980, we suffered 13 losses as well as 17 Casevacs. Amongst the Casevacs was HP Ferreira. HP was actually declared dead. He was shot through the stomach by a 14.5mm anti-aircraft cannon at point blank range. He is the biggest fighter I've ever had the privilege to know, and he survived. He spent 3 years in one military hospital in Pretoria and has had 100 operations since. He still has a hole in his back big enough to put your fist into, 43 years later. Unfortunately, at the beginning of last year, a plastic surgeon cut his intestine by mistake, and he now also wears a colostomy bag. I was part of a small group who returned to the battlefield last year. We were the first group to ever return to Smoke Shell, and my passengers were HP and his wife Fia, together with his platoon commander. HP was the driver, Paul Lowe, who lost 13 men that day. We were accompanied on a tour by a psychologist, Nicole Dixon. She was working on her thesis on the border war in order to obtain her PhD, and the Battle of Smoke Shell was the main focus of her thesis. She has submitted the thesis and awaits the outcome. On the battlefield, when Fia, HP's wife, was about to dress HP's wound, which she has to do twice a day, Nicole asked permission to see the wound. Afterwards, she came to me, I think still in a bit of a state of a shock from what she had seen, and discussed the possibility to raise funds to try and get HP the best medical attention possible. I took this idea up with the powers that be at the 6-1 Veterans Association a month later. We launched a Back a Buddy fundraiser for all 6-1 vets in need, but used HP as the catalyst and first priority. This in turn led to a legacy interview of HP in which both Nicole and myself were involved. Fossey, based in Ireland, interviewed us, and I think it was the first time that I'd become aware of Legacy, and this was October last year. So, what is Legacy about? Historically, very little is recorded from past wars. Yes, plenty has been written and made into movies about specific battles, but very little about the experience of individuals, their training, the battles they were in, their feelings, their fears, their lost mates, the support received from auxiliary units. Quite frankly, the technology to record this was limited to pen and paper. This has changed drastically in the last generation. Computers, smartphones, internet, Facebook, WhatsApp, Zoom, and the list goes on. So with this in mind, Koos started Legacy about 2.5 years ago. Koos is a former policeman turned lawyer and now is an author of over 50 books. He currently lives in Thailand with his wife Rebecca. As the venture grew, he was joined by Fossey Foster, a retired Alouette flight engineer with a substantial number of flying hours. Fossey lives in Ireland with his wife Moira, and his hobbies are scouring the beaches for lost treasures and anything music. Then in January this year, I joined the fold. I'm a chartered accountant with a small practice in East London, married to Marlene, a retired school teacher. As the first SA presenter, or SA-based presenter, I've been trying to do more face-to-face interviews as opposed to Zoom ones. This has taken me to Durban to a 3-2 battalion reunion, the Northern Cape for the 3-2 Recce Wing reunion, Cape Town for a number of parades, Johannesburg, Pretoria, Bloemfontein, and then last week back to Durban. It has been extremely interesting, and one learns new things all the time. Then Nicole Dixon, who'd been with us to Angola, came on board. She brings a whole new dimension to Legacy and will be concentrating on the involvement of the ladies. those that served, those that married into the military, those who had brothers serving, and who knows, maybe even those that wrote the Dear Johnny letters. Nikki is married to Graham, a 6-1 MEF veteran, and their son Luke has just finished a 4-year stint as a sniper in the British Army. Then, just a week or two ago, we had a new addition, At Deploy. At served as a flight engineer in the Air Force before moving to New Zealand, where he retired as a Navy captain. But we don't want to end there. Ideally, we'd like to present videos taken by anyone. So, for example, if you have an event, maybe with a guest speaker, record it, get it to us, and we can edit and release it and give credit to those involved. We want to try and spread this as wide as possible. So basically making use of the available technology, we are aiming to preserve the legacy of all South African veterans of the border war by recording their experiences. All veterans, be it Navy, Air Force, Special Forces, medics, police, railway police, the list goes on. We want to tell the stories of as many veterans as possible and record them for generations to come. One day our grandchildren and their grandchildren will be able to share our military legacy. Something very few of us can do about our grandparents and their grandparents. So I would encourage the younger generation to try and embrace this venture as well. I think it's fair to say many veterans struggle with PTSD, and it seems that in most cases do not talk about their experiences. Those that meet up with their military brothers normally find it helps tremendously because they can speak. Legacy is a great way for those veterans to realize they're not alone, and it gives them a channel to open up. Another aspect of our legacy conversations is to try and assist veterans associations, military projects, as much as possible. In this regard, some examples are, as I've previously mentioned, the H.P. Ferreira story, with appeal for assisting the 6-1 Back a Buddy initiative. About a month ago, I interviewed a retired Navy Admiral, Arne Soderlund. He wrote the book Iron Fist from the Sea. They have embarked on a project, the last surviving Daphne-class submarine, now called Assegai. It was previously, I think, Johanna van der Merwe. They want to bring it on shore. They've got a site in Simonstown where they want to bring this on shore and turn it into a museum. And we did a short interview with him to try and assist them in that fundraising project. Then Koos was out for about 2 months, March, April this year, and he traveled around a bit, and he discovered in the Northern Cape 3-1 battalion basically was made up mainly of Bushmen, and 3-2 battalion mainly of what they call SPs, Swart Portuguese, the black Portuguese from Angola. And these guys were just dumped in the Northern Cape in sort of settlements. Many of them are suffering no water, no wheelchairs, they've lost legs, and there was one guy, Dias Augusto, a 3-1 battalion, who lost an arm and a leg, and he's busy losing his eyesight. So through Legacy, they managed to raise 70,000 Rand to assist him with his medical issues. They also managed to get donations of 20 wheelchairs for the guys needing help. So I think it's just to put it out there. Yes, we want to tell your stories, but if there's an organization that's trying to find a way to raise funds for a particular cause, we're there to help. Then another aspect that we're trying to do, and in fact, if any of you watched this morning's video, it's a prime example. Many battles or many operations, there was more than 3-2 or 6-1. We had chopper pilots, we had medics in the background, we had tiffies, and what we're trying to do is take those operations and put together a comprehensive, have a guy from 3.1 or 3.2, a guy from 6.1, but a chopper pilot as well, and sort of try and get a broader picture of what happened. This morning's video that was released was the first of 3 on Ops Amazon, the artist and Ginger, where it was a collaboration between the recce's, 4 recce, and the Navy, where with a submarine they took them into the harbour in Angola to blow up fuel depots and things like that. And it was very interesting speaking to a couple of the recce's. I wasn't involved, Koos did the interview. Speaking to the recce's, speaking to retired Admiral Steve du Toit, who is the sub-commander, and it's really just very, very interesting. Yeah, and another thing just on that, we would like to get as many stories out there, and I think a lot of people feel, well, I was just an ordinary troopie, I didn't do anything spectacular. But you know what? Those stories, even if it's just PT course at Parabats or basics at one side, those stories most of the guys relate to, because most of the guys did the same thing and weren't necessarily involved in operations or special forces. So I think it's you know, it's really good to get those stories out. I interviewed a guy a few weeks ago who went to 14 Field Artillery, and he went to great lengths to tell us about his basics. You know, he got on the train at such and such a station, got to Potchefstroom, and didn't like this corporal and didn't mind this lieutenant, and got chased around the bush and all the rest. And the number of people that have come back and said, oh, that sounds just like what we did. And so I think it's quite good to try and just include everyone. We have found a good buy-in from 3.2 veterans. So I think the 70-80 interviews with 3.2 veterans and 6.1 are probably the next best. We're battling to get Navy guys. So any Navy guys, please come tell us the story. It's okay, Wayne, you Navy. It'd be good to,
I served on the subs.
Oh well, it'd be great to hear your story. And just to give a bit of background on Legacy, started 2.5 years ago. We've released nearly 600 recordings, over 8,000 YouTube subscribers, and last week we passed the 2 million view mark. So the guys are watching it. And yeah, just to get onto the money side, we had a certain element, particularly with the 3.2 guys who thought, oh, this is a profit-making business. There's no money in it. We bear our own expenses. The only way to make money out of YouTube is to put adverts in, and we've avoided that. Firstly, you have very little control over what adverts do get placed on your video. What Koos has started fairly recently is a Patreon account, Patron, where you can donate $5 a month. I think the idea is to hopefully get a little bit of money in, particularly from the overseas viewers, who $5 is sort of a cup of coffee. I think at the moment we've got 28 subscribers, which $5, $140. They probably take $20 as a fee. So there's about 2,000 rand a month coming in. There's computer equipment needed, the editing software, the Zoom software. So it's not going to go very, very far. As I explained, I've traveled all over the country. It's been all at my own cost. So just as I say, there's really, it's not a profit. The idea is to get the stories out there, and there's no financial gain. And then just on the social media side, I recently launched a Facebook group where we every morning as a video comes out, I post the link. As guys have joined the group, and I've seen those are guys that have been interviewed before, I've put their video up. All 580 odd videos that have been released are on that Facebook group. The Facebook group is called Legacy Conversations, so please feel free to join. I think the more people that join, the more we'll get the message out there. And then just to come back, I spoke about HP Ferreira, and just to come back to that story, just to end off, we raised in the region of 400,000 Rand, which I think was a fantastic effort. Most of it, well, some of it through the back of Buddy, some through direct donations to 6-1. There was a team of cyclists that rode this Munga cycling thing, I think it's from Bloemfontein to the Cape somewhere. And that enabled us to get him to the top specialists in the country. He spent quite a bit of time at Donald Gordon Hospital, which is associated to Wits University. He's got, as I mentioned, a hole in his back. He's got hoping to reverse the colostomy bag. He's got problems with his spine. The outcome wasn't what we hoped for. The positives, I think, is for the first time he knows exactly where he stands. They can do an operation. It will be about a 12-hour operation, but they put his chances of surviving the operation at 35%. It's not if you don't make the op, you back to where you were. It's 35% chance you'll live, 65% chance that you die. So at this stage, he's elected not to have the op. I think obviously if his health deteriorates to such an extent that he's not going to last much longer, then we would reassess it. But just to give you that bit of information, one of the questions that we do get asked is, why do the military not pay his bills? When HP was discharged from 1 mil after 3 years, he said, guys, can't you give me a job even if I've got to file paper? They said, no, you've finished, you can go home. As a national serviceman, he wasn't on the permanent force, medical aids and things like that. But the military will contribute to his medical expenses. They will look after him in one of the military hospitals. But the moment he's got to go to a private hospital, and the military hospitals, quite frankly, can't attend to him. They don't have the specialists. He's got to get pre-approval. The pre-approval process takes 3 to 4 months. Unfortunately, if he needs to get to hospital tonight, he's got to go tonight. He can't wait 3 or 4 months, so he's had to depend on his wife having a private medical aid, and that runs dry very quickly in a year. I think last year, the medical aid paid out over R1 million for him, and at some point along they said no more. So yeah, just to give you that, it's frightening enough. If anyone's interested, I can show you a photo of what his back looks like 43 years later. And yeah, I think from our side, if anyone would like to ask any questions, feel free to do so. If anyone's interested in doing an interview, please let me know and we'll set something up. I'm trying not to do too many. It's a long process. The interview itself is the easiest part. If I do an hour's interview, it takes about 3 hours to edit. With our fast internet speeds in this country, it then takes another 2 hours to export it, and probably an hour to load it onto YouTube. So an hour interview takes the best part of a day. But please, we really would like to do as many as possible. Any ladies, anyone maybe that wrote to Dear Johnny, I can put Nicole onto you. She can happily interview, but I think Nicole brings a very different angle, and any ladies that served or would like to tell their experiences, let me know, and I'll pass your information on to Nicole. Then So any questions, please, if you want to ask now, if you want to come and speak to me afterwards. Yes.
Just one question from the brush operators. I think we have got another brush operator here now from 513 Oshokati. We were sworn to secrecy of the operations that we're involved in and what we knew and which we had control over. Will there be any repercussions now today if any of that came out?
I would have to find out. I'd have to. Koos is a lawyer. I will ask Koos what the situation is. I did a very nice interview with Dr. Anthony Turton, who was National Intelligence, and he told us plenty. And I would imagine that he probably shouldn't or wouldn't have been allowed to in the past. So, in fact, he might be able to give me that answer as well. So I will
work very closely with intelligence. What we got, we can stay with them, and that's why.
Sure.
We sworn to secrecy and a 10-year prison sentence if any stuff that we're involved in, if that came out. I just want to know with the new government, does the same rule apply, or must it still covered up?
I think give me your details, and then I will see what I can find out and get back to you. Anyone else? Okay, well then, thanks once again for inviting me. It was really good to be here. Thank you.
You walk in Pierce Street and then you see Mr. Whitaker.
I can tell you how I got found.
No, but he wants to know how he can get hold of you. That's how.
I'll give you my number. No problem. No, just an interesting story. A couple of months ago, I was with my son getting into our car outside the Jade Garden. Now, you'll know that outside the Jade Garden, there are normally a couple of white beggars standing around. And as I got into my car, this guy knocked on my window, and I'm sort of looking, where's my change? Anyway, I opened the window, and it was Paul. Are you Mr. Whitaker from Legacy?
He was a beggar.
I should have asked what
Hello everyone. I was listening to Andrew and somebody in the audience asked about secrecy. If you signed a secrecy act and you now come and talk to Legacy, are you going to get into trouble? It's a very, very good question actually, and it is a one which we are asked a lot, and you can argue both ways. You can really argue that the Secrecy Act is still there, it's still standing. And therefore, if you tell us your story and you come out and you spill secrets, yes, you can get into trouble. But with all law, it is a bit where you can argue the other way around. It depends if it's in the open already or not, if it's in the public domain. Now, I'm not giving you legal advice. Let's just understand that. I'm not acting on your behalf. I'm giving you general guidelines. If you are in any type of situation like that, then rather go and see your own attorney or own advocate and get some proper legal advice. But the first thing to remember with Legacy is we're not interested in secrets. We don't want to hear anything secret. And we definitely don't want to hear anything which can be used against you. We're not interested. We don't want to hear it. Now, we hear a lot of stories at Legacy. I can tell you there's a lot of people who come to us with amazing things. The only guy we ever said to we can't record you is a fellow who worked with South African intelligence in a neighboring country. Even though it's 30, 40 years ago, he's still there. And that particular country has a very, very nasty, and may I say, very effective counter-espionage people still working. And so I said to him, I don't think we can do this. Rather not. For your own security, don't do it. And so we did it. You must also remember, whatever you tell us, whether it's me or Andrew or anybody else, since none of us are practicing as attorneys anymore, we don't have legal privilege, right? So what you say to us can be used in a court of law against you. There is no legal privilege, which means that you're protected in court for what you say to your attorney or your advocate. That's privileged information, and the only person in the world who has that type of privilege and able to give it out is a practicing attorney or advocate, not somebody like me who's left the profession close to 20 years ago already. So the other problem also is for revealing secrets is that we're not journalists. We don't claim to be journalists, so we don't even have that kind of, privilege which the journalists normally claim. It's not in law. In law, they have no privilege whatsoever, but they do have a legal point. Legacy is not about revealing secrets and things which can get you into trouble. Let me say that again. We are not interested in doing anything like that. We are interested in you as a human being. Tell us about your stories. Tell us about your experiences. We don't point fingers at people who can't defend themselves. So if there was a particularly nasty corporal or officer and this guy's dead already and he can't defend himself, we're not going to allow you to go and say, no, this guy was like this and this. Of course, you can say this in a way which is meant to be funny or whatever, but we can't go out and harm people's reputations. We don't want to do it. It's not that we're about. We don't do that. So the long and the short of the story to answer you is if you signed a secrecy agreement and you feel you're still bound by it, and you feel in your heart you're going to get into trouble to reveal those secrets, then rather don't. Rather don't. Also, when we, before we broadcast any video, we do look at the video, and if we have any doubts whatsoever, we will not broadcast it. We always delete and get rid of original files. So the only files we have on record would be the ones you actually see. The reason for that is many times we cut things out, where somebody said something and we think, oh, you know what, that might be harmful to you or somebody. I mean, we have other stories. We know of soldiers in Angola who died because of incompetence of certain people, and I refuse to broadcast that because I just can't say how it's going to help the cause, and you're just opening wounds, things like that. So we delete and wipe these original documents for that very reason. I hope that answers your question. I know law is horribly strange science. It is really not specific. It's not exact. For everything I say just here, we can say yes, but, and that's the damn problem of law.
Hi, Andrew. Yes, that's a vexing question. Technically speaking, they are still committed to the Official Secrets Act, as I was. I mean, as we all were, in fact. So the Official Secrets Act is something that's done in perpetuity. However, you must appreciate that the purpose of the Official Secrets Act is to protect secrets that are relevant at that moment in time. And that moment in time has come and gone. So therefore, it's incumbent upon the individual to make a decision of their own. And their decision is as follows. They can either decide to continue to perpetuate the Official Secrets Act, in which case their story will never come out, or they can come out themselves in a responsible way without betraying any of the secrets. You must appreciate that those secrets from the electronic warfare side were time sensitive, time relevant. The technologies we have now are not the technologies we had 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So at that point in time, electronic warfare was extremely sophisticated relative to what was available in the world at that point in time. Today, it's not sophisticated anymore because the world has passed us by. So I would argue that it would then come down to a personal judgment, a personal choice. We're all getting old, we're all getting on in years. Each person must make their own choice, and they make their own choice. I think that they're very, very unlikely to ever be prosecuted, because if anyone was going to be prosecuted, then people like myself would have been prosecuted, and other people that have spoken about all kinds of things would also have been prosecuted. So I would argue that if they have the courage to make the decision to speak out, to speak in a responsible way without speaking to the technologies themselves, even though those technologies will now no longer be relevant. But just to speak about the capabilities at that point in time, that's the only way that their role in history will ever be acknowledged. If they don't speak out, then society will never ever learn what they did. And you're right, the electronic warfare people played a very, very big role, in fact, in many ways, they were the front runners. In many ways, they were present in places where nobody else ever was. So I think they have got a very, very powerful story to tell, and I would certainly encourage them to tell it in a responsible way without betraying any closely guarded secret. When I say, what is a closely guarded secret? Well, something is declared as top secret if it can result in a breakdown in diplomatic relations between countries or lead to war. So is anything that they're going to say going to lead to war or break down relations between sovereign states? And I think the answer is I doubt it very much, unless, of course, we were supplied with technology in contravention of international sanctions. I wouldn't mention that. I wouldn't mention the names of the countries, or I wouldn't mention the names of the providers of information. And like in my case, I don't mention the names of agents that we were handling. I'd never ever do that, because that would be very irresponsible, because that would ultimately destroy the life of that agent or the family of that agent if their identity had to get out. But the fact that we had agents in place, well, that I think is relevant. But the names, identities, not necessary. So that would be my advice to these guys, to make an internal decision, to take courage from the fact that not one of the veterans that I know of that has spoken about some of the most highly sensitive things has ever been prosecuted, and therefore it comes down to their own integrity. I hope this is of assistance. You're welcome to pass this on to them if they want to.